Hi FlossTube, my name is Jen, also known as Quirks and Stitches. I've been thinking about joining the world of FlossTube for a little bit now. I've watched some of the videos and love what I've seen, but I'll be honest, this is terrifying, and I am not sure if I'm really ready to bite the bullet, but I decided to just suck it up and try today. So, this is my first go. I apologize in advance for all of the ums and stuttering and awkward movements because this is not a natural process for me. But I wanted to take some time to introduce myself. A lot of you have seen some of my stuff probably on Instagram. I've been stitching for a while now and have been blown away by the community in the Instagram world, and am so grateful for everyone that likes and comments and reaches out for all of the cross stitching that we do. It's something that makes the craft a little bit more fun. So I thought I would start with the Know Your Needleworker tag. I know that some people have done that in the beginning, and figured it would maybe help calm my nerves just a little bit. So here goes nothing. So number one, where do you live? As you can see, I live in Philadelphia. Sporting my Eagles gear today. It's been an interesting year to live in the city. I'm outside in the suburbs actually, but it's been really kind of a nice time to be here and see the community just kind of come together. I'm not a sports fan though, so I really shouldn't be talking too much about that. But yes, I live in Philadelphia, have grown up in this area, ended up in Virginia for a little bit where I met my husband, and we moved back here. It's been about 6 years, 7 years that we've been here, and then been in our house for almost 5. And it's good. We like it. My parents were here. Unfortunately, they're not anymore, which makes it a little harder. They're out in Ohio. My mom has been kind of monumental in my cross stitching, so she's also my finisher. So it's why a lot of my stuff stays unfinished for many periods of time. But it's where we're at for now. What do I do for a living? I am the director of an early childhood center. It's not at all where I would have thought that my path would have led. I started out with education and taught for a while, taught in the early childhood world for a while, and I'm now back doing the director thing. And it's fun, it's busy, it's stressful. That's all I'm going to say about work. Do I have any children? No. The job kind of helped with that because I can get my kid fix at work and leave it there. The kids are not in our cards, and we've embraced that. Do you have any pets? I do. That's where we kind of have our family, and I'm sure you will hear them throughout the course of this filming. I have 2 cats. I have Pandemonium and Mayhem. Pandemonium is my oldest and has been with me for 13 years. She's gotten louder with age. I think she is going deaf. So you may hear her meowing a bit. Mayhem is our terror. She's not very friendly, except to my husband, who she loves. But she kind of lives upstairs and stays to herself, except when she's having her odd friendly moments. And our real furry creature that kind of steals everything is Watson. She is a Dachshund Corgi mix. She just turned 5 and we love her. She is definitely our kid, and we plan a lot of our life around her. You will probably hear her too. She's got quite the pitter patter around our floors with her long nails. What are my other hobbies besides stitching? I am sort of into other crafty things. I do crocheting I'm comfortable with. I've tried to pick up knitting and would really like to get a little bit more with that and get a little more comfortable with it, but for now it kind of lives just in the stash that I've accumulated and have not done anything with. Maybe someday, we'll see. I did finish a couple scarves and was pretty excited about those, but then they started to unravel and that wasn't as exciting. I'm into bullet journaling somewhat. I'm very minimalistic with it. I'm not very artsy, and I don't draw very well, so I get frustrated if what's in my head doesn't translate onto the paper. So I stick mostly with list making for there. I also really like to cook, so I do a lot of cooking, not baking, only cooking, but I will try my hand at that a lot and try to find different recipes to try and things. I've also started reading again. I go in phases. I've tended to notice that my hobbies tend to be cyclical. So around this time of year, I'm generally alternating between cross stitch and knitting, and also reading. So the three kind of try to work together. What is my favorite movie? It's a hard one. I have a lot. My husband and I recently started a movie chain game that's really kind of fun and bringing out all of our old movies again, where we picked one actor and are kind of going, we'll watch a movie with that actor, and then the other person picks an actor that was in the movie we just watched. It's a little silly, but we've got a chain of about 25 going on now, and we just watched Little Miss Sunshine last night. That was fun. Hadn't seen that in a while. So I like the quirkier, kind of darker stuff like that. Not horror, though. I'm not into that. Not gore, but like thought-provoking or puzzly type movies are kind of where I live. My favorite TV show, I fail at television lately. I don't watch anything that isn't streaming somewhere so that I can binge it all at once. We fall asleep to How I Met Your Mother every night just because we know it. But otherwise, I tend to just do the series that are out. I'm doing Parenthood right now because I just needed something to stitch to and have on in the background. But I don't know that I have a favorite television show that I would say is my favorite. My favorite book, I'm a fan of Flannery O'Connor's writing. I like her stuff a lot, so I tend to gravitate towards her short stories. Also Neil Gaiman. Anything by him, I'm a fan. My favorite music. I've not embraced any new music since like the early 2000s, and I'm stuck in my little indie rut that I was in back then, with bands that are really not indie at all anymore. But like the Decemberists and Death Cab for Cutie and Jimmy Eat World and things like that. I'll put on acoustic folk, Amazon music, and that will be my background most days. What one word best describes you? I have no idea. I've tended with quirky because I tend to have a bunch of random obsessions and just it seems to fit. So that's where Quirks and Stitches came from. So that was the Know Your Needleworker tag. Hi. I wanted to give a little recap. Part of the reason why I wanted to start a FlossTube now is because I have recently started doing the Stitch Maynia challenge. And I was gearing up for it. I was so excited about doing it, and I was ready for May. I was going to do 31 new starts in May, and it was going to, I was ready. I was going through all my projects, all my stash, everything. But May was a really long way away. And I had a bunch of trips kind of planned in May. I'm off for a little bit, so I'm going to be out in Ohio visiting my mom over Mother's Day. And I just realized that May was not going to be a good time to be lugging around 31 projects with me to start. So I was sitting at home and I realized that March also had 31 days, and I decided I was going to start early. So I got my stuff together, and I'm calling it Stitch Madness. Brandon, my husband, really wanted it to have a bracket so that there would be a winner at the end of the month, but I couldn't think of a way that that would really work or what the winner would be. So we didn't do that. But I went through all of my projects. I have a lot of stash. And I decided I was going to use only patterns that I've owned, nothing new for that, because I'm also doing the Stitch from Stash challenge. So I'm trying to work my way through some of the, sorry, there's a shadow and I don't like it. Trying to work my way through some of the patterns that I've accumulated. My mom was a cross stitcher for a long time. I actually owned a store, so I've accumulated some of her patterns that she's never going to stitch, and went through just everything that I was going to do. So I also, when I was planning, decided that I wanted there to be 31 different designers. I didn't want to be stuck in the same designer for the entire month, so I wanted to focus on different designers, different topics. I am a thematic stitcher, so I kind of fail at decorating my house, but I I like to stitch Halloween and I like to stitch Christmas, and there tends not to be a whole lot in between. I don't like pastel colors. So spring is usually a tough one for me. I do have a whole lot of St. Patrick's Day stitching that my mom did. My husband is Irish, so when we got married, she beefed up my St. Patrick's Day supply. But I'm not real great about switching out the seasons. I still have my Christmas tree up and all of my winter stitches, as you can see in the background. But it's kind of my downfall. So when I was planning, I really wanted to be conscious of switching it around a little bit, making sure that I was giving myself some things to have up during different seasons of the year. I do like birds, so I've decided during spring and summer I'm going to highlight birds, and have kind of been slowly embracing the idea of bees for the summer. Also like samplers and just year-round stuff that's not going to matter if I still have it up months after when it was happening. So I was conscious of that when I was doing it. I also wanted to make sure that I had a few different sizes. I tend to stitch really big projects, and then I don't want to have 10,000 of those started. So I want to make sure that I'm also giving myself a chance to finish some of those projects. So I started making lists, which is something that I love to do. So I went through and I just started looking. I keep all of my patterns in binders. I make working copies right when I get my pattern, so that I'm not good with things. I get things crumpled and my cats are on top of everything. So I don't like to work from an original. So I make a working copy ready to go and just keep it with any project cards or things like that that I've got around. So what I did was I made my list of what projects I was going to do, and then started trying to match it with fabric. I had some fabric in my supply, but I still needed to get a decent amount. So I ended up going through and trying to figure out what would look right on each type of cut. I don't use a whole lot. I tend to be into the naturals and not the over dyed a whole lot. My mom still finishes all my work and we're old school about it. So we wet things and iron and steam them dry. And I'm a little hesitant to completely switch to the hand dyed stuff in case it runs, because I really have gotten used to her being able to finish the things for me and not have to worry about necessarily getting them framed professionally. She, like I said, owned a shop for all of my childhood, and she did all the framing there too. So she's got quite the stash of frames that when I go and visit, we just pull out all of my finished pieces and we like, oh, this one might go in there and that one with this. But it tends to sit for a little bit until we have a mass framing day. So I'm sorry for the sniffling too. I'm not feeling the best, but I figured I was not waiting another weekend to do this. So I went through my fabrics. I also purchased some new during my local needlework store's Super Bowl Sunday sale. So I went and got a whole bunch of pieces, and I made up this little, I have a picture of a blank one, just a grid that would show that 18 by 27 was what the size of most of my pieces were. And I, calculated how big each piece was going to be. I like to make the most of every piece of fabric. I'm a little frugal, so I'm a lot frugal. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't being wasteful with that. So I mapped out how each piece would fit, giving myself my framing allowance, and kind of went from there. The second step I did was I pulled all my floss. I am a DMC girl. I have a master set. I keep it all. I have tons and tons of DMC. So I store all of my floss on project cards. And I went through all of my old project cards first, and then through my master set and started pulling my floss colors. I have started using some of the over-dyed and hand-dyed stuff, so I looked through my patterns and tried to decide which ones I felt called for it and which ones I felt could get away without. Starting so many at once, it was a little overwhelming. Just the hand-dyed floss that I ended up buying was over $100. So thank God for gift cards. So I was able to just kind of utilize that to fill my not so hefty specialty floss stash up a bit to do this. So I went through floss and then compared the floss to the fabric choices. And once I was satisfied with that, I started cutting the pieces. But I will pull floss for a project and have it ready to go, but cutting the fabric is the absolute last thing I do, because floss can be resituated to a new project, but once you've cut something to size, you've got to have something kind of the same size in mind if you end up not doing it. So what I did was, I have in my bullet journal, I'll show you the page, just a little list that I went through, and sorry, I don't know how to do this. This whole not mirroring thing is really complicated, and I don't like it. But I listed all of my projects, included the stitch count and what fabric I was trying to do it on. And then I also made up a calendar that showed what I planned to stitch on each day, and gave myself room for what actually happened, because as happened very quickly into my plan, everything went wrong. Last weekend was the worst planned weekend to actually start doing something like this. We got hit with a huge blizzard, not huge blizzard, but we got hit with a lot of snow and ended up losing power for about 40 hours. So it made stitching very complicated. I didn't get home until after dark that Friday night on the 2nd, and I did a little stitching by headlamp, which was not my prime choice, but I did it. So I have officially done my 31 starts already, and I'm on day 10 today. I will go through and I'll show you those 10 starts so far. Sorry, I lost my other page that told me what I was talking about. I was going to go through and show you all of the finishes I've had for 2018 too, but because I had originally planned to do this video last week when I only had a couple of the Stitch Mania, Stitch Madness things started, I figured I'd fill time otherwise. I don't want to keep you guys very long. I'm still not real comfortable doing this, so I'm going to keep it a little shorter today, and I wanted to just kind of show and talk a little bit about each of the projects that I've started so far, and then I figured I pulled down one of my favorite pieces that I've got fully finished that I thought I'd show you today. So my first start that I did was the map of Hawk-Run Hollow. I've had this in my stash for a long time. I am a huge Carriage House Samplings fan. I love the look. I love everything that kind of goes into it. The primitive, everything about it. I've done a couple of I did Autumn at Hawk-Run Hollow is hanging in my house currently because it's too big not to have hanging, and too much time and too much work went into it for it not to be on display. So I started Map of Hawk-Run Hollow. I'm doing this on, hold on, I don't know what, hold up. I'm doing this on 32 count. I don't remember what the fabric is. I don't have that listed right here. I should have it listed somewhere. No. It's on a 32 count light mocha. This was just a piece in my stash. It's a big piece, so I am really excited about it. I love how it's coming together so far. So yeah, that was my first start. Day 2, I had planned to do something on dark fabric, and with no light in the house, that was not happening. I also apologize for my hair. I am in desperate need of a haircut, so sorry for the swooping and the everything going on, because I'm just haven't had time yet. So gonna take a quick coffee break. Just a minute. My second start that I decided then is the only start that I've got on Aida. I used to be only an Aida stitcher, but I switched maybe about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I started stitching on linen, and I definitely prefer that. I do stitch by hand. I don't use any frames, so I do the sewing method, but I don't know where I'm at. I totally just lost my train of thought. I'm very sorry. The second start that I did was the Summer Bird series from Heart and Hand. I've done a lot of these, and I've done them all on the Aida. One of the ways my mom and I like to finish out our projects is so that they can just be easily swapped in and out of the frames. So it's not necessarily having to store all of the frames everywhere. It's just storing the pieces that will go into them. I did not get a very big start on this one. I was actually hoping that this would be stitched on a day where I would be able to finish it and then move on to one of the pieces that I had also been working on to give me some, you know, repetitive stitching time, because it's kind of interesting to start all of these pieces and then not be able to go back to them. Like, you are really enjoying stitching it and then it's like, oh, I'm putting it away for a month and not able to finish it. But it's been fun. I am enjoying it. So that was my second start. I've done the Halloween one, the winter Christmas one, I think, the St. Patrick's Day bird. I have the whole series to do. So I just figured I would kind of make my way through it. And like I said, I think it's 16 count Ada. It's the fiddler. My third start, I do not have a picture of the pattern. I don't know where that went. So, but it is the Neighborhood Row by Bent Creek. I've done a bunch of these as well. I've done I have the Noel row still up because, like I said, it's still Christmas in my house. So that one is still hanging up right now. I've also done the Christmas row and the St. Patrick's Day row that are framed. The Spooky row, I think I did in October this past year, is not framed. But I love these. I think they're fun to stitch. This was just a piece of scrap. I thought it was a 30 count, but I'm pretty sure it's a 32. And so I started it in the middle just because I wasn't sure about spacing with this one and wanted to make sure I was giving enough of a framing allowance. I picked this one because I figured it would give me something to swap into one of the Christmas frames for when it's not Christmas, so that maybe Noel didn't have to be up year round. I like to keep my frame placement the same if possible. So that was my third start. I think I got a pretty decent amount on that, even though we had no light. I did spend half of that day driving around trying to find a battery-operated light, but all the craft stores were also out of power, so it didn't work too well. And then my hands were very cold, so I stopped trying to find something else. My fourth start was my Prairie Schooler start. I love Prairie Schooler. I have stitched a couple of them. I've done Happy Christmas and a few that are hanging up. But this one is the As the Crow Flies. I figured I would be able to start it and have it, again, something else to swap out. This is on 32 count lamb's wool. And I really like the way it's coming together. I don't love stitching on lamb's wool. It's not my favorite, but I have a really big piece of it. So I'm trying to work through what I have. So if something calls for it, I'm trying. Day 5, I think, are we at day 5? Yes, day 5. I have loved this pattern for a really long time, the Great Pumpkin Conspiracy. And my mom recently realized she had 2 of them, so I got one of them. So I started this one. I did not get very far. It's on a 40 count. It's a 40 count, I think, Luna by Lakeside Linens, I think. I'm using DMC with this. It's very small, though. I forgot how small 40 was. So it did not get very far on this at all. I'm looking forward to bringing it back out, though, once this month is over. It's funny, this piece here was probably one of my favorite that I was looking forward to stitching so much. I've had it for the longest time, and I really, really do not like the fabric. So I had a really hard time starting this and then not being able, like, I didn't enjoy it. And it's sad. I don't like not enjoying what I'm stitching, but I'm hoping that it's gonna lay okay. I'm wondering if the fabric would lay better if I were a hoop stitcher, but I'm not. I've tried. I stitch by hand, and I can get my tension right that way. I can't any other way. So I got a little bit on it. It was one of those nights where it was like, okay, I'm gonna go home from work and I'm gonna stitch, and then I started and I said, no, I'm gonna have some wine instead. So didn't get so far. That brings us to day 7. I really, really enjoyed this one. For work, some days I don't have to be in until a little bit later, so I spend my mornings, I still get up early in the morning and will stitch a lot before I go to work. So this one has, again, been in my stash for a really long time. Oh, Christmas Tree by All Through the Night. I am stitching this. I switched up the fabric on this one. It is on a 36 count pear by Lakeside Linen. And I'm using, I pulled the floss for this one too. I'm using Garden Gate by Gentle Art to do the color fast thing. Like I said, I'm a DMC stitcher, so having to do the individual stitches is a switch for me. But I'm getting used to it. I've done a couple really big projects that way, but I prefer doing the row stitching and going all the way across the row and coming back. But I'm really enjoying that piece and really looking forward to coming back to it. This next one, my cat. See, this is why I make working copies, because this was my cat's, and I don't need my patterns to be all messed up. I view them as a collection, and I really like to keep them in good condition. So this is why. But this piece, again, has been in my stash for forever. Like I said, I've been gravitating towards a bird theme when I'm not stitched and decorated seasonally for Halloween or Christmas. So I was really excited to start this one. And I'm really, really loving it. I love the fabric. I love everything about it. I'm just using the DMC for this. It was really, really fun stitching it. I'm doing it on a 36 count country mocha, and I have this fabric for a couple of other projects, so I'm like, ooh, when do I get to stitch on this again? But yeah, I really am liking this piece a lot and can't wait to come back to it. I apologize, I think I'm talking very, very fast, but I'm seeing the time go on this, and I was hoping to keep it under half an hour, so I'm gonna keep talking kind of fast. This was just a little start, the Santa's Coming ornament by Swalik. Sorry, I don't pronounce things correctly, so I'm very sorry if I butchered that. I love this piece. I think it's so cute with the cats. I've already messed up on mine though, because I did this at Starbucks before work one morning, and didn't realize that the border wasn't supposed to be X's and that it was supposed to be just a running stitch, I think. But I'm gonna go with it. I'm not gonna tear it out. I think I will actually probably end up making this one twice, once for me, once for my mom. She's totally gonna watch this though, so she'll see. Anyway, but I love the little cats in it. I think it's cute. So gonna go with that. Sorry for the noise. Yesterday's start was probably my favorite so far. I just kind of set aside all day to work on it. My husband cleaned the kitchen while I stitched because he's awesome. And I really just needed some stitching downtime. It's how I decompress, and it's how I just kind of calm. I've realized that it really does that for me. So this is Riley Harbor by Kathy Barrick. I think I'm going to do a whale theme, kind of inspired by Mariner's Revenge by the Decemberists. So I think that's going to be how my walls are decorated during non-seasonal times. So I love this. I love the houses. I love the whale. I'm still waiting on the floss for the whale because I will stitch him in the silks. But I'm doing the rest just in DMC. I'm doing this on a 40 count exemplar by Lakeside Linens, and very little stitches, but I love the houses, I love the horse, I love the bird, I love the tree, I love it all. So really excited to start this one. The fabric, I didn't realize before I started, has a very kind of a pinky hue to it, but I think it suits it okay, so I'm not too upset about it. I like how it's coming out so far. And I have another one planned for this fabric as well, so I'm excited to work with that a little bit more. This morning I'll show you my start. I'm planning on having a little more stitching time, so I will hopefully get a little bit more done with this before I put it away totally. But this is Cross Stitch Nation by Heartstring. I'm also working on His Eyes on the Sparrow by Heartstring right now. That will probably be until I die. But I'm loving both of them. I started this on a 40 count Picture This Plus Legacy, I believe. And I think I might be a little too close to the edge, but hopefully my mom will be able to salvage it and it won't be too much of a problem. So I'm excited about this one too. I'm using the specialty flosses for this, so it's trying to do every individual stitch unless I forget, and then I'm not ripping it out because I don't like to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at with Stitch Mania right now. I've been looking through because my schedule, my calendar is completely swapped from what I had originally planned it to be. So I'm trying to be proactive with my planning for the rest of the month, that I'm not going to be stuck with 10 projects on 40 count in a row, or all Halloween at the end. I do have a Halloween start planned for the 13th, and I have a St. Patrick's Day start planned for the 17th. Tried to kind of give myself that. So hopefully I'll be in the mood to stitch those things those days, and we'll see. I was, like I said, going to go through all of my 2018 finishes, but this is about the length that I was hoping it would be. So I think I'm going to end this out pretty soon. I will show you one other tracker that I'm using in my bullet journal that's helping me kind of track what I'm stitching. And this is just what I'm stitching in 2018. So I've got the project, the stitch count, the fabric, and whether it was just finished or if it was a fully finished project, so that I can kind of see. I've gone in streaks where I've worked for a really long time and then I put stitching away and I just don't touch it. I'm trying to avoid that and trying to continue this because I do know that it brings me calm, and it is a nice community to be in part of, especially when that's something that I was kind of lacking without having family here. So thank you guys for being that for me. I do appreciate it. I know Eclectic Possessions has been monumental in some of that. Emily, thank you for being welcoming and all of that with Instagram and encouraging me to suck it up and do this. So here I am. I figured I would end each one of these with just showcasing one of the pieces that I've got all the way finished and is up on my walls. So I thought today I would show you one that I'm pretty proud of. This is the Alphabet Blocks by Carriage House. I loved stitching this. It's on a 32 count. I don't know what the fabric was. I think just a natural, but I loved every block of this. It went with me many places. I was in the airport, it was in Ohio, it was all over the place. I used to take it to work with me. And it was really one of the first times that I used the overdyed floss only in this sections. Everything else was done just with DMC. But I got it. My mom had it professionally framed for me because she's awesome. And she did that. And it's one that I just have up all the time. So this is my first attempt at a FlossTube. I'm sorry that I say a lot and I ramble and talk too fast. I hope that you though enjoy. I enjoy stitching with all of you. Thank you again for your kind words. If you have things that you would like to hear about, I'd love to kind of go through my planning process, my organizational process. I was thinking one day I could show. But I want to show things that you guys are going to want to watch. So if you can help me out with that, that would be awesome. I'm looking forward to starting to watch some more of the FlossTubes as well. I have a couple that I've been following, but I haven't watched a whole bunch just because of how our living room is set up. Our new TV links YouTube to it. So I'm excited to be able to kind of set that up. Although it's my husband's account, so he gets all the FlossTubes then, like littering his feed, so I'm sorry, I don't know. But I am excited to be part of this community again, and thank you. Keep stitching, and I'm looking forward to stitching with you.